Okay, we need to address the elephant in the room. We have a space problem. And no, there's no alien attack yet, but that's the least of our problems right now. What we're talking about is some serious space business. And in today's video, we'll take a look at how Starlink space junk has deep dived onto Earth again, and why it should be front page news right now. Full disclosure, y'all be very, very worried. First up, another piece of SpaceX debris is found near the snowy mountains of Tumbarumba. The small town located in New South Wales is the very definition of quaint. The name might sound like you're in for a party, but it's actually quite nice out there. Serene, quiet, peaceful, all things our lives severely lack these days. If you too, like us, dream of living in a farmhouse after retirement, grazing cattle, and enjoying the blissful breeze of the countryside, then Tumbarumba is probably the ideal place for you. But lately, it's been raining all sorts of space junk there, so it's possible that your trip might not be as pleasant as you think. If you've been following our channel, then you probably know that back in July, a few pieces of the so-called super amazing space tech were found stranded in the middle of nowhere and were only discovered when residents of Daughtry and Jindabyne complained of a loud bang. And not only a month later, more fragments of Starlink's space behemoth are also being tracked down in various parts of the area down under. This brings up the total count of the space junk stuff to 4, and it's quite worrying that such a thing is even allowed to happen today. Cattle farmer Jordan Hobbs stumbled upon the recent piece while feeding his livestock on August 13, and bless his heart, he didn't even know what it was, and that is completely understandable. Man's been breeding cow for a living, and to find a giant piece of metal among them does raise a few odd questions. So how did Jordan react to the space junk in his backyard? The Australian farmer never in his wildest dreams thought that the huge hoverboard-shaped fragment on his land would belong to a spacecraft miles above the exosphere. In fact, Jordan initially thought it was rubbish, and he was going to throw it in the bin. Imagine that. Well, technically, he wasn't wrong though. It was rubbish, just not from this land. So in hindsight, he was probably doing the right thing. But we guess curiosity got the better of him, because he didn't end up throwing it in the bin like he first planned to. Instead, he went on to Google and tried to find some answers for himself. During his time surfing the internet, Jordan found out that the fragment he found had the same aesthetic and looked a lot like other space junk pieces that were found further east earlier. And when his suspicions were confirmed, the ASA sent down ANU astrophysicist Brad Tucker, who then set things straight for all of us. Even though the situation of space gunk falling from the sky is pretty serious, there was not a single moment Jordan didn't diffuse the tension with his humor. He laughed the incident off, saying that he's lucky he wears a cowboy hat out in the outskirts, but he's really considering switching over to a motorcycle helmet. And you know what? That is a purchase we all might be making in the near future if things go on like this. Now, what does the Australian Space Agency say about all of this? The ASA was quick to jump on the scene and confirmed in August that all the pieces found so far belong to a SpaceX mission that has now probably been blown to bits by now. In the chaos of it all, SpaceX also finally came forward and gave its own statement, but instead of acknowledging that the debris belonged to them, they confirmed that they'd send an inspection team down to Australia to check out the debris firsthand. As we mentioned earlier, Dr. Brad Tucker was the first person to clear up any confusion regarding the fragments from space. He further explained that the pieces were found in a very distinct geological pattern, so there's reason to suspect that there's probably a lot more where they came from. And honestly, we kinda agree with Brad here. Something most likely blows up in space, and there are only 4 pieces of evidence? No way. There's gotta be more of this junk around. The shape of the 4th piece was also interesting for Dr. Tucker because it was the perfect line that is also very much like the trajectory of the SpaceX capsule. The astrophysicist also mentioned that there are probably more such pieces far east, but he can't say if all of them will be found. Remember, space has no medium, so it has no gravity, so things are basically floating up there until one of them goes haywire and goes tumbling down to Earth. Case in point, Starlink. And lastly, how worried should we be about all of this? Frankly speaking, Jordan was right. Maybe it's time to bring out those motorcycle helmets. To think at any given moment, on the way to work or on your daily Starbucks trip, you could probably get struck by space junk is like a page from a dystopian novel. We don't want to see that day, like ever. But since it's already happening in Australia, there's no way it won't be our reality soon. We know space pollution is a problem, a big one at that, and SpaceX has been considered to be one of the top polluters by a mile. So for its division Starlink to also be one of the contenders isn't surprising. This competition of who owns space has honestly ruined us, and seeing as how we're actively destroying our planet, we're not exactly keeping the rest of the universe habitable either. Under international law, the SpaceX pieces were to be sent back to the US for the government to decide whether to keep them in a museum or donate them to science. this, because clearly there's a lack of public knowledge about fragments flying from space, and we don't think many people are aware of the protocols if you come across space junk. For one, you're not supposed to make TikToks and upload it, maybe to educate people, sure, but if you're gonna do it for the clout, you might as well try something else, because SpaceX takes its image very seriously. We hope SpaceX finally issues clear statements about their investigations, so that we know how much to adjust our worry on our panic scales. We have enough on our plates as it is, and we don't want to worry about being squashed like snails by a giant metal hoverboard. And now, moving on to other news. First up, remote areas will get SpaceX's Starlink internet very soon. You heard that right, guys. We're getting super fast 5G internet everywhere now, or at least beta versions of it. SpaceX founder Elon Musk and T-Mobile CEO made a huge announcement this month and talked about expanding their services to remote areas through T-Mobile's mid-band spectrum. So basically, whenever you see a clear view of the sky, you can get high-speed internet on your mobile phone and stream those 4K videos on YouTube as long as there's no gray cloud in the sky. The service is expected to launch sometime next year, and a test run will be done for connectivity of 2 to 4 megabits for one zone. So great for calls and text, but you might want to put streaming on hold. Next, we might expect downgraded internet speeds following the pre-order backlog at Starlink. If you ordered Starlink and it's been a few months, don't worry, Elon and his buddies are making sure you get your service on time, but it's going to cost you a seamless experience. Because Starlink prioritizes some customers, it'll be unable to deliver its normal top-notch speeds to everyone, so someone's got to bear the brunt end of the stick, right? Even if you got the supposed best internet in the world, you can expect some lag here and there. Urgent connectivity services are being provided to users under the best effort service option for potential Starlink loyalists, but having to wait until mid-2023 is hardly worth that effort. Sorry, Elon. And finally, good news for Starlink users in Ireland. As of Wednesday, 24 August 2022, Starlink users in Ireland will now have to pay a monthly fee of €85 instead of the regular €99. This decision was taken with the local market conditions in mind, which reflect the parity in purchasing power across the consumer base as per a SpaceX official in Ireland. Starlink has solid competition in Ireland. DigiWeb is, after all, every Irish person's #1 internet broadband provider, so maybe reducing the price is a way to compete for that #1 spot here, but still, considering the inflation and the economies right now, an €85 price tag is still not justified when a cheaper plan for $29.95 a month is literally right there. That's a wrap for this video. On a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about space junk now? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Until then, see you soon.